As I sit here in this quiet room, watching my loved one take their final breaths, I can't help but think about the nature of life and death. It's almost as if I'm seeing my own life flashing before my eyes. All the memories, the joy, the pain, the love, and the regrets, they all come rushing back to me. But as I reflect on the past, I can't help but wonder about the future. What comes next? Is this the end, or is there something beyond this life? I remember reading about past life regression, the idea that our consciousness can transcend time and space, and that we can access memories from previous lives. And yet, as I watch my loved one slip away, I can't help but wonder if consciousness truly does continue after death. Will my loved one find peace, or will their consciousness be lost forever in the abyss of the unknown? When I was a child, my grandfather used to tell me stories about the afterlife. He would describe a magical place where the souls of the departed went to live forever in peace and happiness. It sounded like a wonderful place, and I found comfort in the thought that my loved ones who had passed on were still out there, watching over me. But as I grew older, I started to question whether these stories were really true. Science and reason told me that when we die, our bodies simply cease to function, and our consciousness fades away. There was no evidence to support the idea of an afterlife, and it seemed more likely that this was just a comforting myth to help us cope with the inevitability of death. But then something happened that made me rethink everything. A man named Jack had a near-death experience. Jack had been in a car accident and was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. While in the emergency room, Jack's heart stopped beating, and he was declared clinically dead for several minutes before being resuscitated. When Jack woke up, he described an experience unlike anything he had ever felt before. He said that he felt like he was floating above his body, watching as the doctors worked frantically to save him. He felt an overwhelming sense of peace and calm, and he saw a bright light in the distance. As Jack approached the light, he saw figures in the distance. They were indistinct, but he could sense that they were people he had known and loved who had passed away before him. Jack felt a deep sense of joy and comfort as he approached these figures, and he knew instinctively that he had come home. But just as Jack reached the figures, he was suddenly jolted back to reality. He woke up in the hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses. While Jack was grateful to be alive, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had experienced something profound and meaningful during those few minutes of clinical death. What happened to Jack during those moments of clinical death? Did he really see the afterlife? While we may never know for certain, I believe that Jack's experience is a testament to the enduring mystery of life and death. We've heard stories of near-death experiences, ghosts, and other supernatural occurrences that hint at the existence of an afterlife. And yet, despite all the advancements we've made in science and technology, we still haven't found a definitive answer. Perhaps, the question of where we go when we die is not one that can be answered with logic and reason alone. After all, death is a deeply personal and emotional experience, and the human consciousness is a complex and mysterious entity that we are still struggling to fully understand. Some believe in an afterlife, a continuation of our consciousness in some form beyond the physical realm. Others believe in reincarnation, the idea that our consciousness is reborn into a new body after death. And still, others believe that consciousness simply ceases to exist after we take our last breath. One such study was conducted by a team of researchers at the University of Southampton in the United Kingdom. They examined more than 2,000 cases of cardiac arrest patients and found that nearly 40% of them reported having some form of conscious awareness during the period when they were clinically dead. Some of these patients even reported having vivid and highly lucid experiences, such as feeling separated from their physical bodies, traveling through tunnels of light, and encountering deceased loved ones or spiritual beings. Another study conducted by Dutch cardiologist Pim van Lommel examined more than 300 cases of cardiac arrest patients and found that nearly 20% of them reported having some form of perceptual or conscious experience during the time when their brains were clinically dead. These experiences included feelings of peace and joy, as well as encounters with spiritual beings and deceased loved ones. While these studies are certainly intriguing, They do not provide any conclusive evidence of what happens to our consciousness after we die. However, they do suggest that there may be more to our existence than what we can perceive with our physical senses. Death is a natural part of life. It's a transition that every living being goes through, and it's something that we should all come to accept. In many ways, death is just another phase of existence, and it's not something to be feared or avoided. Rather, it's something that we should embrace as part of our journey. However, what happens after we die is a much more complicated question. From a religious perspective, many believe that there is an afterlife, a place where our souls go to continue on in some form of existence. This can range from the concept of heaven and hell to the idea of reincarnation, where our souls are reborn into another body or form. From a scientific perspective, we know that our bodies eventually decompose and return to the earth. But what happens to our consciousness or soul is still largely unknown. We may have beliefs or ideas about what happens after we die, but the truth is, we won't know until we get there. This can be a frustrating and humbling realization, but it's also one that can be liberating. In many ways, the uncertainty of death reminds us to live fully in the present moment. We never know when our time will come, so it's important to make the most of the time we have. We should focus on building meaningful connections with others, pursuing our passions, and finding joy in the small things. We should also strive to live a life that is true to ourselves, one that reflects our values and beliefs. Of course, this is easier said than done. We live in a world that is often chaotic and stressful, and it can be hard to find our way. We may struggle with self-doubt, insecurity, and a sense of disconnection from others. But I believe that these challenges are all part of the journey of self-discovery. To truly understand ourselves and our place in the world, we must go on a journey of self-discovery. This journey may involve exploring our passions, facing our fears, and reflecting on our past experiences. It may also involve seeking out the wisdom and guidance of others, whether that's through religion, therapy, or simply talking with friends and loved ones. In many ways, discovering our true selves is like going on a road trip. We may not know the exact destination or route, but each step we take brings us closer to discovering who we are and what we want. Along the way, we may encounter unexpected detours and obstacles, but with each challenge, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. The journey may never truly end, but each new experience adds to the richness of our lives and helps us find meaning and purpose. In the face of our mortality, it can be tempting to seek out answers about what happens after we die, but the reality is that we may never know for sure. Instead of fixating on the unknown, we can choose to focus on the present moment and find meaning in the time we have. At the same time, it's important to acknowledge our mortality and come to terms with it. This doesn't mean giving up on life or living in fear of death, but rather embracing the reality of our impermanence and using it as a reminder to make the most of the time we have. Ultimately, the nature of consciousness and what happens after we die may remain a mystery, but we can find comfort and meaning in the here and now. We can choose to live fully in the present moment, with gratitude for the experiences and relationships that make life worth living. So as you go forward from here, I encourage you to embrace the present moment, accept your mortality, and find joy and meaning in the time you have. And let us be grateful for the opportunity to be part of something greater than ourselves, even if we may never fully understand what that is. Thank you for joining me on this journey of exploration and contemplation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.